What's up, guys? This is Captain White or Jordan, and yeah, happy to be here. Thanks again for another opportunity, Andrew, to make music. This one was really fun. I started off by just having a look through all of the samples, found some ones that were interesting to me. So this one involved a lot of pitch bending and reversing and looping little tiny blips of the whole sound bite into synths, but almost every track in my project here has at least one of the samples that Andrew sent. So I started by creating just a little drum loop. So a lot of these are just straight up the knocks that I use for like a rim shot sound. The kick came from this sound, which is also sounds like a rim shot, but I pitched it down and added a bunch of EQ and bass amp type stuff on it to make it sound more bassy. So some of them I used as is, others I really colored up. I added some noise and some crunch to that one. There's quite a bit of like Ableton Library vocoder effects on a couple of these to add tone and to add noise to them. I turned this sound into a little shaker, pitched it up, and then took the low end out of it to make it sound like a little and then looped that so it comes in every few measures, or once a measure, I guess. I put one of the knocking sounds into a MIDI keyboard and just made like a downward arpeggiating thing. You can't really tell what note it is, really. It's kind of noise, but when you add it on top of the synth that I added, it kind of adds like a really gritty synth. And then a couple of synth sounds from the Ableton library. This is one of the sounds that I put a chromatic vocoder on and changed a bunch of the overtones and stuff to make it sound like really airy. This is the original sound for that. So I took out that initial knock and just had that airy sound and robotized it a little bit. So it just adds some flavor to the percussion there. And then I created my own synth using Helm to do an octave layer with the 808 from the Ableton library. So this intro sound thing where it knocks, 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 and then becomes shorter and shorter, what I did was I recorded myself slowly closing up the amount of clip that was looping, which made it turn into eventually just a buzz because it was just one sound that was looping like 1,000 times. And then I turned that, so that's what I turned into the intro. I was kind of like, I was trying to push the limits of my small bit of knowledge. I was trying to use new tricks and try new things out. These tones also came from one of the samples that I like just sped up into a tone. Then I started messing with different parameters. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted it to sound like going forward, and I knew these sounds didn't fit in that, but I kind of just watched as it evolved, and I kind of didn't know where I was going at the same time. So as I was going, I was trying new tricks and feeling like, okay, this makes me want to do this next, which comes to that first vocal. I wanted a vocal to be in that first drop with a long reverb tail, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to say. So I started thinking about like, well, what if I did a different language? And I started looking up terms and stuff in different languages and finally landed on Korean. A lot of these samples that Andrew sent are just knocking sounds, so I thought, okay, what about knock knock? And so I found knock knock in Korean, learned a version of the sound knock knock in Korean and recorded that. And then later for the other drops in the song, I have a lot of friends who either know a bit of Korean, have lived in Korea, or have Korean friends. And so I reached out to some of them to get some vocal takes just with like voice memos. This is just a sign in the Ableton Library MIDI effects. And I also wanted to give this some noise and some air, so I looped this sound. I just took one of those cycling whooshes and turned it into a rhythmic whoosh while this thing's going. And I widened it up by recording the MIDI track and then turning them into audio waves and then just putting a stereo widener on them. These risers over here are really easy to hear, you know, where they came from in Andrew's samples if you listen to them. I got a swell that I dragged out to create a riser, and I added a chorus warble to it. I distorted some, made it messy. Some of them are reversed and then played forward and reversed again to make that like push and pull type of sound. Stacked with this thing up here, which is another click of his, but it's just more like... We still got the percussion stuff going that are mostly just all his samples. Chopped up parts of the clicks, and I panned them to make them sound like, whoa, whoa, it's over here, it's over there. Kind of circling around your head. That was the goal. I don't know if it worked. And I just used a little bit of a tom roll with the Ableton Library samples. When I contacted my friends about the vocals, originally I came with them can you say "let me in" or things like that, and they're like, that phrase doesn't really exist in Korean. So how about like, "Are you crazy?" or "Do you want to die?" And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, that's great. So over here we have a vocal stack with multiple different kind of fatteners and compression and vocoding and stuff to make little phrases during the drops. I chopped up my tuk tuk over here. They weren't super confident on this word. They're native English speakers, but they weren't sure about that phrase, but they said, hey, Korenglish is popular in K-pop anyway, so whatever. And then the final word here is kojo. That means get lost, I guess. Kojo. And I just stacked it up with like a high-pitched one, a low-pitched one. Kojo. 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 A couple different takes that she sent me. Kojo. Her and her daughter did quite a few to give me some variation. Matter of fact, over here is a clip that I kept that they sent me in a voice memo.
Kojo means get lost. So kojo. Kojo. Well, that's a very American way of saying it.
Kojo. That was her daughter in the back going kojo like a redneck. I thought that was funny. So I want to show you guys that. So this one's really cool. It's just another sound that I added some like modulation, like vocoding stuff to. Just to give it that, like, metallic, warbly sound, like a freaking Transformer sound or something. It actually sounds like a low-end cut version of the bomb going off in Episode 2 of Star Wars. Chops over here. I also have one over here that was MIDI-ized. That I put a ping-pong delay on and warbled up. It's over here as well. That one I really, really warbled up. I just wanted to make things as interesting as I knew how, or didn't know how, and started messing with a bunch of different audio effects in here I'd never used before. But yeah, it's just a bunch of things like stacked up to give it more texture than just a knock here and there, because that's what I always learned from Andrew Huang's videos. And that synth, that very, very K-pop sounding thing. It's just a couple of notes up here. I also made this synth with Helm. Looks like this. Those are kind of the settings that I used. Just wanted to make it sound like a very old sound. I don't know how else to describe it. It sounds K-pop-ish to me. And then these things are also synthesized clips of one of the Andrew samples. It's just this here. It's a knock of some kind. Over here, it just changes octaves. One of the last things I did, I wanted to make when I was playing it back, I was like, the intro still feels kind of like empty to the rest of it. So I threw in a couple little blips of that synth over there in the big part. I threw a couple of those over here in the back end. And I panned them. It's just something that kind of goes on in the distance. It's telling you that it's coming later in the song. Yeah, I would have finished this track sooner, but Korea is like an entire day ahead of me, and so there was like some communication gaps, and then people were busy, and then I was busy, but we got there. I struggled for a while to kind of figure out how long I wanted to loop each section or drag each section out. Wanted it to kind of keep your attention. And so we switched up from this groovy beginning part into this like weird, like creepy Castlevania type sound over here. But then I wanted to go back into that really catchy, like groovy thing while just changing the drum patterns a little bit and then having like breaks in between them. And I thought, like, for a little bit, do I give this synth thing enough time in the song for people to enjoy? Or do I go to the next thing too fast? And I ended up going, you know what? I'm going to leave it be. Because as short as it is, it's rich. And the longer it would drag out, I don't know, it might be too repetitive. So I just decided, you know what? I could sit here all month long and tweak everything, but just gotta enter into the contest. So I hope you guys enjoy it. This is Knock Knock.